have amazing memories of, and a lot of stories from, my career carrying a camera. I couldn't possibly share all of them in any timely fashion, but there are a few that spring to mind when people ask. So here's a lighthearted story time for you. I want to preface these stories with an acknowledgement that by telling them there's a danger of coming off as a little show-offy. I wanted to share them because, well, I think they're fun, and they tie into the photography themes I've been trying to share with these videos. I've been blessed with experiences that I wouldn't have otherwise had if not for photography. I've had access to spaces, the opportunity to meet people, and experiences that if not for photography, I wouldn't have had, and I'm profoundly grateful for all of it. Let's tell the stories. The Basketball Hall of Fame is here in Western Mass, in Springfield, and back in the day, working for a local paper, I had the opportunity to photograph 2 or 3 non-season Hall of Fame games. Something to know about me is that I am not a sports guy. I have nothing against sports, nor anyone that enjoys them. If going to games and watching them on TV is your thing, you do you, they just aren't for me. That's relevant to this particular story because the press was invited to a buffet held for current and former basketball industry greats. Because of my press connections at the time, I was able to bring a +1, so I brought along a friend who was all about basketball. I had no idea who any of the players or coaches were, but my friend was in heaven. He was pointing them out to me in hushed tones like, "Do you know who that guy is?" And I would have to look at him and reply, "No." So it's our turn at the buffet, and we're going through the line, and there were 2 very tall gentlemen in front of me talking, blocking my access to the chicken piccata. I excused myself and reached over as politely as I could and put a piece on my plate. When we got back to our table, my friend said to me, "Do you know who that was you brushed aside so you could get a piece of chicken?" I looked at him and again said, "No." Apparently he was a living legend, and I wasn't as smooth as I thought I was in the moment, and I probably didn't see this because he towered over me and I had my eyes on another prize. But my friend saw him look at the other tall gentleman and roll his eyes. I still don't know who that guy was, but if I was inadvertently rude to him, I publicly apologize. I have no memory if the piccata was any good or not. Back in my photojournalism days, I had the opportunity to photograph a political campaign stop in Springfield where Hillary Clinton, who was campaigning for Senator Ted Kennedy as he was running for re-election at the time. This was in 1994 when she was still First Lady, and I was there for a local paper, though I had ambitions to work for a larger agency or newspaper. There I was at the edge of the security barricade, the Secret Service not 10 feet in front of me, lined up alongside photographers from the Associated Press and Reuters and Time and White House press photographers. I was right alongside photographers I'd hoped to one day consider peers. At the time, that was one of the coolest things. During the 90s and early 2000s, in addition to freelance photojournalism, I also photographed bands and concerts. One of my earlier ones was a radio station showcase at a club called The Sting in New Britain, Connecticut. The Sting is now long gone, but I both saw and photographed a few shows there. There were 6 bands at this particular show, one of which was Letters to Cleo, who only had their first album out at the time. I was backstage in a communal dressing room with some of the band who were waiting on Kaye Hanley, the singer, to join them. It was late and they wanted to leave so they could hit the road for their next stop, but she was out front signing autographs. When she finished and came back, and one member of the band kind of griped at her about taking the time to do that, I distinctly remember her saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, "We wouldn't be doing this if not for those fans out there. I'm going to sign everything they put in front of me because we wouldn't be on that stage without them." I never forgot that. This show was in 1995, so it's been 29 years since then. I wonder if she still feels that way. In 1997, I was at a music festival at a location that's a Six Flags now, but locals of a certain age remember it as Riverside Park in Agawam. There was an area where they had a speedway for car races, which was occasionally converted to host big concerts. I don't have a memory of what the capacity was, and Googling it didn't yield any results, but it had to have been a couple thousand people. I was photographing the event for Radio 104, the radio station that was putting on the festival, and there were 2 stages set up side by side, so while one band was playing one stage, the other could be prepped for the next band. This way, as soon as one band finished their set, the next band could start right away. Having an all-access pass to photograph the show, I made my way to the back of one of the stages and walked up the ramp used to load equipment in and out, intending to be on the side of the stage so I could photograph the band performing on the other. When I walked out, I found myself not on the side, but in the middle of the actual stage where the next band would be performing. Now, I know everyone was focused on the stage to my left where the band was playing, but when I walked out, I'm sure it was a curious sight to see some guy with a couple of cameras in the middle of an empty stage. So there I was, standing in front of half the crowd that was in front of this stage, and it felt like all eyes were on me. So what do you do when you find yourself suddenly on a stage in front of a couple thousand people? You put your fist in the air like you're Judd Nelson at the end of The Breakfast Club. To my surprise, everyone cheered. Is that what it's like to be in a band performing on stage and having people suddenly cheer? It was only a few seconds and then it was over, but for those few seconds, I felt like a rock star. Just this past week, I was at the Eric Carle Museum of Picture Book Art in Amherst photographing a talk by a children's book author and illustrator. The museum director was going to give him and his wife a VIP tour of the back of the museum and show them some original art that had never been on display. Since I was there for his talk and book signing, they asked me to come along and document it. I just had to be cautious not to get too clear a photo of the art because of copyright issues. On a very clean table was a pile of matted art that had archival tissue placed over each piece, and one illustration or painting or collage at a time was presented for them to examine. Well, I just had to see this too, so as I was walking around the room as unobtrusively as I could, I sort of leaned in a little bit so I could get a good look. It was piece after piece of original art. I have to admit I didn't recognize some of the names of the artists, but I definitely recognized others. Being able to see that art that people made with their own hands just sitting on a table in front of me, not hung on a wall in a frame or in a book, was pretty amazing. My wedding photography career has been decidedly grounded. I never had the opportunity to do what you might think of as celebrity weddings. I did have 2 celebrity adjacent encounters over the years, though. I'm not going to name names, but both times they were the uncles of the bride. One of them you might recognize as one of the many drummers from Spinal Tap. At another wedding, years later, as family was arriving, I saw who it was and turned to the coordinator and asked, "Is that?" And she said, "Yes, yes it is." And I'm thinking, that dude was in Aliens. Having been in movies and on TV, I expect they were hyper aware of where the cameras are in a room, but I didn't want to treat them any differently than anyone else. On that day, as far as I was concerned, they were both just the uncle. The experiences that really move me, though, are the emails I get from couples who tell me that looking at their photos is like reliving their wedding day. Just this past week, I got an email from a bride whose wedding I delivered a few days prior. The bride wrote, "I was in tears looking through all these amazing photos. You captured our day in such a beautiful, natural way. So much so that the groom's grandmother, who couldn't be there, felt like she didn't miss a thing by going through it all. Nothing fills my heart as much as receiving a message like that." Finally, how cool is it that you sometimes get to work with your friends? Other photographers are some of my best friends, and I get to photograph wedding days and occasionally other things with them. Sure, this is a job and all, it's a career, but it's one I can't believe how much fun I have doing. Right now, my friend Ryan Williams from Four Wings Photography and I are working on an off-camera lighting workshop for May 11th at the Wistariahurst Museum in Holyoke. We've been working on a curriculum and filming reels for marketing it, and that's been pretty fun in itself. We'll have a loose idea of what we want to do and just kind of riff on things and film them. To give you an idea of some of the fun, here's a reel where we use tube lights as lightsabers. Let's be honest, if you have one of these, you know you've done this too. Check it out.
We're off-camera lighting photographers.
Not Jedi in training. I have the higher ground, Anakin. Nah, that was no good. Let's do this before this one. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for watching. If you like what you saw in this video, please like and subscribe, and feel free to comment with any of your own photography stories. If you'd like to see more, check out this other video I made for you. This is Ask a Wedding Photographer. I'm Seth Kaye, and I'm here to help.